Welcome to Who Knew. We are fans of the current series of Doctor Who, and here we discuss our likes, dislikes, and insights into the modern regeneration of the show. Today's episode is episode 4 of season 3, Daleks in Manhattan. The Doctor and Martha travel to 1930s New York.
Yous guys, what's with these big people?
This episode is written by Helen Rayner, directed by James Strong. It originally aired on the 21st of April 2007, and it was watched by 6.69 million viewers. Let's introduce ourselves.
Hi, y'all. This is Frank.
Hi, this is Auburn.
Yeah, this is Josh.
This is Brian.
This is Eugene. Tallulah, a Broadway actress, is in her dressing room making out with her boyfriend Laszlo. It's showtime, so she leaves and Laszlo hears something moving about. He follows a mysterious figure and is attacked by a humanoid pig.
Of course.
That tired old story.
Yeah, Aliens of London callback maybe, but not really.
That's right. I was trying to remember what the other pig man running around was.
It was a smaller one, though.
Right.
He was just scared.
That was a pig that they made into a human. This is the opposite. A human they make into a pig.
Spoiler.
Completely different.
Totally different.
Yeah, boy, it's an
Not to
original
be
idea.
confused with.
Martha and the Doctor arrive at the Statue of Liberty, and Martha reads the date of November 1st, 1930 from a nearby newspaper. The headline is Hooverville Mystery Deepens, which sends them to visit a shantytown that is developed in Central Park due to the stock market crash of 1929. There they meet Solomon and Frank and learn that people are disappearing from Hooverville.
I gotta say, like, we made fun of the Daleks from New York, but as cartoonish as they were, I did think they were like perfectly accurate.
You're kidding.
No, I'm not kidding. That's how people sound. It was amped up.
Even Tallulah?
Especially her. She sounded like she was from there.
That's
so
why
I don't
you
know
moved away.
if she's it had a certain cadence to that era, and especially like,
that's true.
like entertainment wise, like she sounds like the one character from Singing in the Rain. I can't stand them. But just the actual dialect, again, it's cartoonish, but it was almost everybody was perfectly accurate. But I also think maybe I was watching it thinking this might be cartoonish because this may be what British people think people from New York sound like.
That's exactly what it is, I'm sure.
And I guess
And not New York, by the way. I think that's what British people think Americans sound like.
Because even the main antagonist, he had a stilted way of talking, but there weren't any slips in the dialect anywhere. I'm curious as to if they were British people putting that on, or they were people from that area that...
I'll tell you later.
I figured you would.
We made notes.
I'm posing that speculation now. That speculatory idea.
Jibba jabba.
Who's a what's-its?
I am glad you said that because I kept thinking, oh, this is too much. And then, well, they're doing it well. But
That's right.
I kept going back and forth as to whether or not it sounded good.
Well, off of that note, even though we're a little early talking about it, though, Tallulah, as cartoonish as she was, emotionally, I thought she was very good. That's something that happens on Doctor Who a lot, is your first thought is like, oh, what are they doing? And then your second thought is, well, they're actually, I'm getting pretty wrapped up in this.
Mm-hmm.
They commit. Like all the actors really commit to whatever role it is.
And I think that's what sort of sells it. Like, she was good if you're going to play a cartoon flapper in the 1930s.
They're setting up the time with playing the background music, a Rhapsody in Blue, and putting on the Ritz and getting all that going. And I liked what Martha said about the newsreels are just the black and white that you see, and that never seems real to a lot of people. You know, now she's here, and now they're colorizing a lot of the old footage that they're finding, or finding color footage.
Right, yeah.
Which brings it to more of a reality for a lot of people.
What you just said made me think also, too, like point of view-wise, looking at the Shakespeare episode, it's this idealized view of Shakespeare's era, people speaking in Cockney and hey nani nani and that stuff. So in a way, and it was kind of amped up as well.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So this kind of is the equivalent to that in a way.
Okay.
I can totally see that.
And I think because the production people aren't from New York, I mean, correct, unless there were people on the show who were, they don't have, it is just a point of view from across the pond, as opposed to if you were a New Yorker making fun of New York, it would probably be different.
Yeah, and I'm sure the British laugh at and cringe at our stuff that we write as British. This is what England is like, and of course it's not.
Yeah. So. And if someone in New Jersey makes fun of New York, they get their butt kicked.
As well they should.
Yes.
They didn't film in New York. So everything that you see of New York is around Cardiff, except they did send probably a second unit.
The director, the writer, and some Doctor Who confidential people.
Yeah, and so they took like plates.
Oh, really? So some of the like footage is...
Yeah, so when you see the TARDIS materializing in front of the Statue of Liberty base,
That's really there?
that really is the Statue of Liberty base.
Oh.
But when you see the actors walk out of the TARDIS, they're in Cardiff. And I always notice the bricks.
Oh.
Because the bricks on the statue, they're all symmetrical, uniform. But when they're standing in front of the TARDIS and doing their scene, you can tell it's one of those British stone walls that have been around for like 5,000 years. And, all the bricks are like, well, we just have this size, so we'll just shove it in there and make it fit. And
Well, what's funny is that in the Doctor Who confidential, like, we found something that matched. I'm like, no, you didn't.
nice try. That's
Backing up a little bit, when Martha reads the paper, to me, that's my first reference or homage maybe to Back to the Future when Marty goes back and he gets the newspaper out of the trash bin in Hill Valley. And then this will happen some more, so this is the first time I've noticing it.
You notice the Doctor's reaction is a bit more serious than usual right off the bat when he looks at the paper. And he kind of keeps that through the whole episode. He's pretty serious through this whole thing. He's not the fun Doctor in this episode.
And he has later on. There's a great line that sums it all up. Why he's feeling the way he does.
And also to that newspaper thing, it shows that Martha's a smart companion because the Doctor's like, smell that Atlantic air. And it's about something, this and that. And then she goes, November 1st, 1930? Yeah. And then he's like, oh, you read it on the newspaper.
You're getting good at this. Oh. But his seriousness is such a juxtaposition to pig people attacking. Just the visual that you're seeing is sort of the dichotomy of just the two of going, some of this and the accents when you first hear them is something we don't hear a lot of now with that cadence.
When we first meet Solomon and he describes Hooverville, which by the way are real. There really were Hoovervilles.
Oh, yeah.
But a lot of people, I don't think, remember or know about Hooverville. So I think it was great that they brought that up.
This is the first time I heard of a Hooverville was.
Oh, really?
Was
And you're the history person,
And I'm
which
the
is
history person.
surprising.
I mean, of course, I know about the Depression and I know about shanty towns going everywhere because no one had any homes. But I did not know that they were called Hoovervilles. And when I learned that they called Hoovervilles, was like, good, he deserved it.
Martha wouldn't know because she's not from America, so that's not part of her historical canon, but the Doctor knows, and there's a quick line, and then we're moving on.
Yeah.
But I want to just go about Hooverville. There's also a lot of other terms, derogatory terms for Hoover. Hubert Hoover was the Hoover blanket, which were newspapers. Hoover flag, which were empty pockets because you didn't have anything. Hoover leather, which was cardboard used for the shoes, soles, that kind of thing. So
It was not just a Ville, it was more.
There's also a music number in the musical Annie, We'd Like to Thank You, Herbert Hoover, which is all about that, and it's often taken out of the production because it doesn't really advance anything.
Really? Oh, that's interesting. But I was going to say about Solomon's speech, I don't like the writing.
Yeah.
It's too on the nose.
Yeah, that's what
I
I was
also
saying.
wonder how integrated they actually were.
It's like the race is just not mentioned in any way, shape, or form.
Well, in that speech
There's
it is.
not.
in the speech it is.
But
yeah.
but
yeah.
no. But I mean, in the sense of this is Solomon, who's a black man, who's in charge. In charge of this Hooverville. Everyone looks to him as the leader. He breaks up a fight between a white man and a black man. And there's no mention of race, racism, bigotry, segregation, anything.
But the black man still loses half his loaf of bread. He has to give it to them. So it's there.
Okay.
You know.
But like I like how they address it and brush it off in other episodes. Like in Shakespeare's episode. Well, I'm black. And he's like, so it's not going to matter. Look, it's just like modern day.
Right.
And it, maybe that's not realistic, but it at least acknowledges the issue and and then they kind of say, but that's not the issue that we're going to talk about in this episode. This one, it's just like over and over again throughout these two episodes. It's like I don't feel like you're really in the 30s.
Yeah.
I just don't see people being so integrated, even when you are down on your luck.
Yeah.
But if you're down on your luck and you're competing for every scrap you can get, unfortunately, the blacks were on the bottom of that totem pole.
It would enhance the difference.
Yes, I do believe that.
I like the fact that they just, I liked how it played out in the episode, but it was noticeable to me. But I wondered, like you were saying, is that something that they did for the episode? Because, it's modern day and that's not the point of what we're trying to tell, and we address it, but we kind of move on from it. Or were the Hooverville shantytowns actually like that? Because it kind of evened everybody out.
From what I saw, trying to do some research on it, is that they were more segregated.
They were more segregated. I can't imagine them not being. But again, then that brings up a whole other plot line.
I think it's just more of a modern view of we're going to touch a quick, just a modern view. Yeah. We want to have different people in shows, and we don't want to always have to do with the racial.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Solomon does say, when you're down on your luck, it doesn't matter. Everybody's equal. Mm-hmm. To me, that's
not enough.
It didn't ring true. Yeah. And I probably wouldn't mind it if everything else around it was working too, but I just don't like that. To me, that speech is just so heavy-handed writing.
Mm-hmm. If I'm remembering correctly, isn't it the King Solomon,
the baby, and who's going to cut it to give part of it to each mother.
So that was the analogy.
It's definitely with the splitting of the bread, reference that. Which made me think, is his name Solomon, or was that just a nickname?
Because he's running the place.
But I think we might be reading too much into it, because it doesn't seem that they really thought in the writing of this to try and give it a lot of depth. They are going, we're doing the idealistic view of, we want to cast this actor, it's great. Realistically, this may not happen, but we're going idealistically where the race is not going to be the issue. Yeah. So we're saying that everybody's in the same boat. And that's what's going on forward. Yeah. Everyone's in the same boat.
And I usually love that. It just didn't ring true to me in this. And maybe it's just because for me, there's something off about the whole thing. And that's just the whole episode.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
It just, like on the Shakespeare one, it doesn't bother me a bit.
No.
I love the fact that the British say, we don't care. We're just going to do it. Right? Yeah. And so they do it. Great. That's great. But, it's not, to me, it's just like, makes me feel bad for America, where it's like, oh yeah, that wouldn't have happened in real life, because racism was just so
prevalent.
It's a trade. It's a balance between you don't want to forget history, but you also don't want history to be those bad points in history to win. So by kind of people not even really noticing it, then the bad guys don't win.
That's
the
a good
bad
point.
things don't win. 10, 20 years from now when a kid watches this Doctor Who or streams it or however they do it or plugs it into their brain, racism didn't win. But then there's with the Holocaust and this and that, never forget, and 9/11, all these different things where, do you let history rule you, or do you kind of, I made a Hitler joke the other day, and I felt people be uncomfortable. And I'm like, we need to be able to joke about Hitler. Right. That way he loses.
Right.
But people are very sensitive these days.
Thank you, Mel Brooks.
Yes, exactly.
But the plot of this episode, these two episodes, could be taken out of this era and put anywhere else, because it's not tied to it. Right. It's not. So I'm glad that they put it in here so that we can at least remember and think about Hooverville and what happened with that. So I think we have to give it some slack.
Yeah.
That's not the plot. They just put this in the setting.
Yeah.
They're establishing the setting without going too deep into it.
And I want to do that.
Yeah.
And besides, the actor who does Solomon is really good.
He is really good. I recognize him from other stuff. I don't. Do we know?
Yes, we do. Okay. Do you guys want to take a guess where you've seen him before? Episode 1, Captain Panaka.
Oh, yeah. Star Wars Episode 1.
Yes.
Not Doctor Who episode.
Well, if you must.
But yes, I know what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah. To Brian's earlier point about Solomon's speech, I think even before that, the doctor talking to Martha about the Hoovervilles and the history definitely to me started feeling like British people patting themselves on the back for the more socialized government that they had at the time of this. I'm not sure currently. I'm not even sure then exactly. But it did feel a little like how great the British system was because the U.S. system had led to Hoovervilles and this. I mean, I
can kind of see that.
But I agree with you that Solomon's speech felt a little over the top, but I think it even started with the doctor setting it up.
I can see that too. Yeah. I don't know. And the funny thing is I feel that you could have expressed those ideas in the same amount of time because they're also under a time pressure.
Yeah, it really was no subtext.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just kind of like, okay, soften it up a bit.
I like that they went back to the original Doctor Who to be a history lesson for kids, to give them some information about the history. So I like that aspect of it.
Oh, I do too. It taught me. And I got a history degree, and look how well it did. I didn't know about something until Doctor Who told me.
I learned about Hoovervilles in grade school.
I think I might have. I remember it from Annie Moore, though.
Entertainment can educate. Towering over Central Park is the nearly finished Empire State Building. Inside, the construction foreman argues with Mr. Diagoras, I hate that name, telling him that they cannot finish the work Diagoras wants added to the top of the building by tonight. He threatens to walk and take all the workers with him. Mr. Diagoras says that the foreman should tell the new masters himself and rings for the elevator. When it opens, a Dalek emerges with 2 pig people who take the foreman away.
I'm sorry, Josh, but this is the scene where I'm going enough with the New York accents.
Yeah. Well, that guy, he was very... Well, we'll talk about it later, but I find it very interesting his before and after performance with when his character goes through a change later on.
Yeah, that's true.
But, oh, yeah, it's very... Again, I'm not condoning or whatever the performance. I'm just saying that there were no slips of the dialect where that's not how people would pronounce such and such, because you hear that's basically what I'm saying.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of East Coast New York pronunciations that people think are said one way, but they're really not.
Oh, okay.
Well, this guy, Diagoras, Eric Lauren, is an American from Boston.
Well, yeah, Boston, yeah.
So it must have been killing him to do a New York
Yeah,
accent.
maybe. It's similar. It's similar. Like when I went to college,
Right now, all the New Yorkers and Bostonians are screaming at you.
Unsubscribe, unsubscribe.
Yeah, we ain't nothing like that, Boston.
Boston.
Yeah.
Red Sox.
Where's this guy, California? Who's he think he is? You've been out there too long. Why don't you call your mother? She'll tell you what's what.
The elevator door shows how there's not much subtlety in this. I mean, it looks like
It looks
the
like-
eye
yeah.
stalk of a Dalek.
Yeah.
So
The
they
same
are
thing.
blatant.
Why would you need to have that visual when the episode is named Daleks in Manhattan?
Oh, I can see it if it's done well.
Yeah, but it's not done well. That's what I'm saying. It's not done well.
But it's blatant because, like I said in previous episodes, the Martha season is more geared toward kids.
The Dalek tells Mr. Diagoras, I hate that name, that they need more men. So Diagoras goes to Hooverville to recruit workers. He offers the pitiful amount of $1 a day to clear debris from a collapsed sewer tunnel. Solomon says the pay is extremely low considering all the accidents that happen. The doctor, intrigued by the missing people and accidents, volunteers along with Martha, Solomon, and Frank. The 4 make their way through the sewers to where Diagoras said the collapse would be. But instead, they find an organic, gelatinous dead glob that looks like a cross between a brain and a jellyfish.
Who thought he was going to lick it?
I did.
Or at least lick his fingers after licking it. But
I could hear
touching
Kelsey's
it.
voice. Yeah.
Oh, that was
Lick it.
It's actually Arlene. would say that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, if he would have licked it, we would have had a shorter episode because he would have been like, Daleks!
So what you're saying is he should have licked it?
He should have licked it.
Oh, okay.
This would have made a shorter episode.
Did the Doctor in season 1 see the Dalek in its true form in that episode?
Yes.
When it opened briefly.
And he had
Right.
seen them before.
He had seen them before, so I'm a little surprised it didn't. It didn't.
That
occur
didn't look
to
like a Dalek, though.
Yeah.
But I thought the prop was sufficiently disgusting.
me. Oh, it was.
It was.
I like Martha's reaction to it.
Yes,
The stench.
she sells it.
She does well.
Yeah.
And she's a doctor.
And then when he goes puts his face close to it, and she reacts to him doing that.
It's great. Half of acting is reacting.
Yeah.
So when Diagoras is offering the who's going to come and the work,
Yeah.
again, that just, to me, it just didn't ring true. I don't want this to be, have been a show about racism, but I don't know. Maybe if they had done that, it would be a much better episode. But again, that bugged me. And even Martha volunteering to do the work and getting chosen to do the work.
Yeah.
Not because she's black, but because she's a woman.
Yeah.
I don't see them doing that. I don't,
Right.
it just...
So it's not. So it's they didn't pay, and they know that they didn't pay them enough that they can get out of Hooverville.
Yeah.
So they keep going. It's like, oh yeah, these accidents keep going off, and people are dying.
And it's front page news, so it's not even just like an isolated thing.
Yeah,
It's
that's true,
well
too.
known.
Right.
And So again, it's just kind of like, again, they're moving the story along. They needed to set up a way where it's the 4 actors and, nobody else. I just, again, wish that there had been another pass of the script just to make it just a little bit flow a little bit better, you know?
I thought all those things too, but again, I also then just felt like, well, I think they made a decision,
Right.
well,
To move past those
to move,
certain things,
in
yeah.
the making of this episode, to just, we either have to stop and address all this stuff, or we just have to not make it as much of an issue and hint at it.
Yeah.
And I guess
Right.
that comes from us being American and that being our history, that we have a more
That's a good point.
direct
That might
connection
be a
to
good
it.
point.
That's a really good point, because
'Cause
it's a hot button issue
Yeah.
even nowadays. And
Right.
when you go back to then, whereas that's not even 100 years. Well, it's actually almost 100
Almost.
years ago.
And you are
Yeah.
maybe right about that, because I'm able to, again, going back to Shakespeare Code,
Yeah.
where they have the one line, don't worry about being black, and I'm fine with it. So maybe, I don't know.
I mean, it could be, like,
It also could be that the episode earns it. It could also
That's
be
true.
that if this were a great episode,
We would
in
be
and
o-
of
we
itself,
would be
it
okay with
like,
that.
I'm glad they didn't waste
yeah.
Also,
screen time on discussing racism.
the person who said that's William Shakespeare, and the whole thing is touting him to be a
genius.
a genius who's outside the norm,
Yeah, and we buy it.
and we buy it.
Yeah, or I bought it at least.
I will not.
And I'm not buying it in this one.
No, I don't
No.
disagree with you, but I just was, again, it's a lighthearted episode where heavy things are treated lightheartedly.
Yes.
Is that okay or not?
Well, in this episode, I think what they really wanted to concentrate on was the class aspect. Like, you get that
Yes.
through that first speech. You
Yeah.
get that through Frank's little bit of speaking here. You get that with the Empire State Building in the background
Of
Of the
Hooverville.
shanty-
Hooverville.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The shadow of.
In the shadow, yeah. And then I think that also ties into the end of the story in the next episode with, like, what does it mean to connect
Right.
Daleks and humans. So
Right.
I think they left the race story on the table because they were concentrating on the class story, for better or for worse. Probably for worse, like, not to mention it at all.
But that's excellent, because for a British person, class is something they struggle with. We don't in America. Yes, we have issues. You are right. This was written from more of a British perspective for a British audience. They're focusing on class. Whereas when we watch this and see the class stuff, we just kind of go, yeah.
Yeah.
But what about this racist stuff over here? And a British person might flip that and go, oh, yeah, there was racism. But look at this class stuff over there. I mean, I could be completely wrong.
Well, also back then, race was connected to class very heavily.
Previously, like in Shakespeare Code, and there they made it like a running gag with Shakespeare, using all these allusions to Martha, like
We're not gonna
Moorish
repeat it.
Yeah. Whatever they were, go back and watch that show. But obviously,
She also reacts to it, too.
right,
Like,
and the
she
show is able to address that issue. So it's not like they're blind to it. It's just in this they decided to turn a blind eye, which I think was a wrong decision. I agree. Especially later in this episode where they do like the intelligence tests. Like,
yeah,
that's the one where
jeez.
we're like, come on. And then
Yeah.
all the workers and Diagoras is
No one likes that. Dave.
yeah.
Remember,
no
he
one
came
likes-
up with
I
the
wanna say
diagram
Pythagoras, yeah. All the workers there are all white and all very British looking white people too, like the blue eye,
Yeah.
shaved head.
Fair
but-
skin.
Are you trying to make
Yeah.
a Hitler joke?
Trying to make a British joke.
No, because those wouldn't be funny.
Right, that's what
Not yet.
Well, on the lighter side,
Sorry.
those people who are just watching this episode for the first
Yes.
time, or
have
after
recently watched
a
it.
few years, look and see. Oh my gosh, it's Spider-Man.
Yeah, yeah.
Where we watched it when it first came out, and it was like, oh, it's this new guy. He's got something. I think you'll see him later on.
That's funny.
He'll develop. So,
And
Andrew
what
Garfield.
is that accent? I mean, golly, that accent just does not work.
I didn't think he did bad.
Oh, he thought he did bad. He said he thought he did bad because he didn't know why he was talking that way on the set.
He does that
Maybe I watched too
again,
much Dukes of Hazzard when I was younger, so it's fine.
but he does that accent again in
Hacksaw Ridge.
That's right.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
very
Is
simple.
it the same accent?
Pretty much the same accent.
Oh, because there was an interview with him where he was going, "Why am I talking this way?"
Well, maybe it's. I don't. To me, it sounded the same. Like Auburn, did it sound the same?
I felt like it was the same accent from Hacksaw. Well, that Hacksaw Ridge's accent was
Yes.
this accent.
It's just
with a little bit of coaching.
I just envision that everyone from the South
Sound-
cringes when they hear that.
now when you guys were going to talk about some of our actors and their
I guess
origins,
we could.
just because Andrew Garfield is
British.
No,
no.
he was born in America.
Oh, well.
Grew up in Britain.
But he has a
But his accent.
British
He
accent.
has
Yeah,
an accent.
he has an accent.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I will rephrase that. He lost his American accent. Because we all have accents.
Right.
And then Solomon, it sounded like you guys did some research into his character, into his actor.
Yes, the actor is Hugh Quarshie, and he's from Ghana, and he grew up, I guess, in England because he's a member of the Royal Shakespeare Company. And other than Captain Panaka in Star Wars Episode 1, he was Sunda Castagear in Highlander, if you remember that.
The TV show?
Oh, that's right.
The movie.
The original
That's
movie?
right.
The original movie?
Yes, the original movie.
It's here. It's in New York.
Yes.
That's who he is.
Yeah, yeah.
He's that old? He didn't look that old.
Wow. The quickening.
I was going to make a bad joke.
What?
I think Frank knew what I was going to make. You probably didn't see this one. He was Detective Joyce in Nightbreed. Who also was in Nightbreed was Eric Lauren, who played Mr. Diagras.
Oh.
Eric Lauren was also the cook in Memphis Belle, and he was a War Department lieutenant in Saving Private Ryan.
But they have a good cast. I mean, these are some
This
talented
is a
people.
good cast.
Oh, in the show. I thought you meant
In this
Saving Private
episode.
Ryan.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, no. It is
no, but I mean, they've done it.
It's a strong cast.
It
and
is a
they
very
commit
strong
to what
What
they're
about,
doing. So it's something doesn't
Yeah,
work
they
in this
commit.
episode, but it's like it's
I think the writing is just very on the nose.
Yeah.
And it's kind of
and
like
the lack of subtlety
yeah,
kind of just lays it out
yeah,
there.
it
It's
doesn't
just-
really give an actor much to work
just
with
flat.
when they're just saying row row your boat. What about Tallulah?
Tallulah is Miranda Rison. She's English. She's done a lot of stuff for Thomas and Friends, the train cartoons, voices. But upcoming, she is going to be in Murder on the Orient Express, directed by Kenneth Branagh. And then Laszlo is played by Ryan Carnes, who is American. He's a drummer. He's a musician. He was Lucas Jones in General Hospital, Kit Walker in The New Phantom, the 2009 version of The Phantom, and he was Justin in Desperate Housewives.
That's where I remember.
Yeah, I rember from that.
So it's a mix.
I would really love to hear the actor who plays Diagorus. I'd love to hear his normal voice.
He probably does. I mean, he could probably put on a good hard Boston accent.
Oh, well, yeah. I just want to hear
Right,
how
right,
hard
right.
his Boston accent is.
It's probably wicked
There's
hard.
a scale. Wicked? Yeah.
All right, now you don't offend. We
Really?
don't want any Boston people coming to hunt us down here. I'd be more afraid of them. Let's not talk about anybody from Philly. Maybe we have to change our name.
So switching slightly, I think that Frank shows that he's good companion material.
Oh, that Frank.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Spider-Man Frank. And you can see like there's sort of a little hint of maybe a romance between Martha and Frank at this point.
Keep going.
Statutorily.
Don't think it's romance.
There's a
Martha. Anyway.
there's a connection. They're talking.
I think
as
it's an
they go on-
outcast connection.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay, but I'm saying there's a connection.
Right.
And one time I watched it, I read it as romantic, and the other time I watched it, I did not read it that way.
But Frank noticing that there are no bones around and thinking that those
Yes.
people who are taken are still alive.
And he's very
That's what you mean
observant.
for
Yes.
the companion aspect.
He's smart, observing, and I think if the doctor were noticing more, there would be something there.
Plus, he also wants to help.
Yes. It's kind of like Adam from season 1, but we like Frank
Yeah, I like Frank a lot.
because he's a young guy.
Yeah, he's he's one of those characters you don't want anything bad to happen to.
I like his hat.
They mentioned about how
Oh, yeah.
the costuming was like, we have to have hats, but we can't have everybody have hats. Because they were saying that people hat act in the thing.
Yeah, but everybody wore hats back then.
I know. I'm just saying
According
that
to the
it was a
Animaniacs.
choice.
We've been walking for a very long time. Where do you think we are? And the doctor does it, and he does it like in this, well, we're right under Manhattan. And it's like, yeah, you're in Manhattan. You've been walking around. Of course you're right under Manhattan. I mean, I wanted Martha to be like, duh, where are we?
That's when the Buffy line, does the word duh mean anything to you? Is perfect.
I mean, seriously.
It makes me kind of think, I wonder if the people who wrote this didn't realize that Central Park was in the middle of Manhattan.
That's the weird thing. The writer did go to Manhattan or New York to film those, what do you call it, coverage and the stock shots and things. So they do know the geography.
It was written before that, though.
They could have fixed it.
Yeah.
And for a British audience, like
They don't
that's
know.
as much as it means.
Yeah, they don't
Like
know.
I think it would have been stronger if he would have said, "I think we're right under the Empire State Building,"
Yes.
like because that would have connected the next scene better.
That actually makes him smart.
Right.
Where Manhattan, they're like,
But you're right. All three of you. It's the show written for kids.
For
in
British
England.
kids.
with no subtext.
No subtext. It just, yeah. All right. That's exactly what it is.
I worked on a show that was set in New York, and I don't know the geography of New York. I've never lived there. And so I would be using Wikipedia and the internet to try to figure out, like, okay, what neighborhood is this in? And early on, like, I put in Manhattan because that's what came up. I'm like, all right, that works. And the EP at the company was like, yeah, we know we're in Manhattan. That's the whole island or whatever it is. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll change it to something else. So it's not a hard mistake to make for somebody who
doesn't know.
isn't intimate with the geography of
That shouldn't have been the doctor's
boroughs.
It shouldn't have been the
Yeah.
doctor's line.
If it was
Yeah.
supposed to be a bit of a snide joke, he should have.
He should have delivered it
should have been
differently.
more obvious.
Yeah, and I agree. I think a more specific, like the building would have been better and more dramatic than just.
Or if
yeah.
he said, I think we're still under Manhattan.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think what Brian is getting at, it doesn't ring true to the doctor's character.
yeah.
No.
He should have been, it might as well have said, I think we're still under the sun. You know?
Are we still in America?
Well, Earth.
We've been walking for like half a mile.
Dagris tells the construction workers that they need to attach special metal plates to the base of the spire on top of the building. They protest, saying that it is too cold. Their hands would go numb and they would lose their grip and fall. Dagris threatens them to do it or they will be replaced. They reluctantly pick up the metal and climb the outside of the building. The Dalek arrives and it and Dagris reminisce about past wars affecting their species. Dagris says he will do whatever it takes to rule New York. The Dalek receives instructions from another Dalek who is watching the conversation remotely. It is to bring Dagris to the lab so that the final experiment can begin. There, they reveal themselves to be the Cult of Skaro.
You didn't mention what the metal looked like, though.
So what did the metal look like, Josh?
The metal looked like the half spheres that are on the Daleks.
Because it was.
Dun, dun, dun.
Well, I know, but we don't know that yet. When I originally saw it, I just thought they built that. And,
Yeah.
Right.
I found it interesting that the spheres connect. There's not just domes on the outside plating of the Dalek skirt.
What do you
Are
mean?
they, is that one piece of metal with the dome going through it?
That's what I'm thinking. It looks
'Cause-
like that.
No, it
does,
was flat on the bottom.
No, it wasn't.
Well, one
I
guy
always
picks one
take it
up.
as two pieces
I thought it was either
together.
two pieces.
Because in the episode Dalek, the spheres remove themselves and they're
Oh,
spheres.
you're right.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, I was thinking
Yeah.
the same thing.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
But later, when they do show where they come from, there's not divots there
Yes, I was
where
going
the
to bring
holes
that up.
go.
You're right.
It's on the backside of Dalek Thay, I believe.
I'll take your word for it.
Back to this speech with Dagris. I hate that name. Anyway, I think it's interesting that Dagris has the same. He's also affected by World War I in the same way that Solomon is affected, but these two individuals have different outcomes of how it affects them. Solomon is more about rising above adversity and trouble, where Dagris has become more insular and selfish, and I want to rule New York so that this doesn't happen to me again. It's just a weird dichotomy between these two characters.
I like that. I like that point. Also, Diagorus wasn't anybody higher up. He didn't have money before the crash. He was the foreman.
Yeah.
And then the Daleks psychically gave him ideas. And he talks about that in, I think, this scene where the Daleks came, gave him ideas, helped him and elevated him and used him as their liaison to the...
Elevated him?
Yes, elevate. So I thought that was good where it's like they needed somebody, you were picking you.
Yeah.
Even Solomon said this is strange, but this time is strange for people who had millions, now have nothing, and it switches back.
Yeah, despite all our criticism of that scene earlier, I think it's great that Solomon points out that there's a lawyer, there's this, there's that. And I think that's good.
That's true.
That's good.
That's true. What's not good about this scene, though, is they have a Dalek reminiscing. Dalek Khan reminiscing.
But he's one of the The Cult of Scar.
Yes.
Well, yeah, so they are different. They are
This conversation is like a conversation between two war buddies.
right. Yeah, I don't disagree with you, but I just think it's all leading up to these Daleks are different.
But I think because of the temporal shift, something happened in Sek and something happened in Khan, who are the two higher ups.
Right.
But it is odd that he's reminiscing about New York. There's always a city of New York throughout history. No matter how many news you put in front of it.
This is a melancholy speech out of a Dalek. And to me, on top of everything else, it's just one more thing that just doesn't ring true.
I think again it's a symptom of that, like, and that didn't give it another pass of
Yeah.
paring it back.
Also, I hadn't considered the way you look at it, or how you all looked at it, where it's like these are Daleks that have changed. I try to rationalize it in my head as that he's playing Diagorus. He's testing Diagorus. He's trying to figure Diagorus out to see if Diagorus is smart enough to participate in the final experiment, which is what Dalek Sek goes, we're going to use him. Or you've gotten out of him what we needed to know, so we are now going to use him. That's how I rationalize it in my head.
And Khan says you would make a good Dalek.
Yes.
Because they're similar. So he's made that connection. So that backs you up on that.
Yeah. But I
think-
still don't like it.
I think I remember.
I like my Daleks pure.
You would make a good Dalek.
Dalek racist.
I mean, then that's great when they first did the Daleks because they were just pure.
Yeah.
But throughout all the different seasons, throughout the
They had to do something to
years
survive.
of all these changing and people bringing new things into it, that when they first reboot this, Russell put in the episode Dalek,
Yes, which I love.
which the Dalek was changing.
Yes.
he
But they
wanted
gave
to
it. They
feel.
gave it an instigating moment there when she touched it. So something happened.
We
that Dalek.
found out the explanation.
But Mickey
of what
also
happened.
touched this
The arc-
thing
no,
in the
touched
arc,
the arc.
in Doomsday, which would have changed.
Oh, there
started
you
changing
go.
the whole Dalek race. But I understand it's not a pure Dalek, but I'm thinking the only thing that gets me because of the temporal shift screwed them up a bit.
What is?
Because they had the temporal shift from Doomsday, and I
Because
got
the
to
void-
the emergency temporal part and got thrown back into the 1930s.
Do you remember the moment in Doomsday when the Rose and the Doctor opened up the void and they're all being sucked
Yes.
in? There's one brief shot where we see Dalek Sek going, emergency temporal shift, and he disappears. All four of them disappear. We don't see all four in the episode. We just see Dalek Sek disappear.
Okay. No, I mean, I vaguely remember that, but
Yeah.
I totally wasn't.
So that answers where they went.
Totally understandable. But they were thrown back to the 1930s.
So much happens in these shows.
Or 20s.
Or
This is
20s, yeah,
1930s.
because this probably took a
I
while.
was like, wait.
They caused the stock market
They
crash.
got thrown back to the Depression era in New York.
Okay.
So in
I
their
find that
time-
very interesting. I like this episode a little better now.
But I agree with you on a lot of this. I'm just, how I always do it as I rationalize a lot of things I don't like.
They gave a doctor scene to a Dalek.
yeah.
You could make this work, right? Like we had Dalek in the first
Right.
season and talking about the Time War. And you felt sympathy for that Dalek, and it was well written, and it worked. Yeah. You know, it worked from beginning to end. This scene just seems to just kind of come out of nowhere.
I almost think it would be better if Diagorus was talking to that foreman trying to get out of working at night, because they would have been, maybe he would have been in the war too, and then the Daleks are observing them, seeing if Diagorus is,
That would have been way better.
worthy of becoming converted.
Yeah,
And then
we
he
just see
would have
Dalek Sek watching the two
Yeah,
humans.
that would have
talk.
been better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
What other episodes did this writer write?
She goes on to write another two-parter in future seasons, or a future season of Doctor Who.
Oh.
In the sewers, the Doctor's group is chased by pigmen. They make their way up a ladder and are able to get out, except for poor Frank. The ladder leads to a theater, where they meet Tallulah, who points a gun at them and asks them what they did with Laszlo. The Doctor tells her that Laszlo is not the only person missing, and she tosses the prop gun aside. Solomon confesses that he left Frank in the tunnels because he was scared. He returns to Hooverville to tell them that people are being abducted. They're not just missing. He rallies the men, and they arm themselves.
During the sewer chase, the Doctor wants to go alone, and he does this again later in this episode. But at this point, he tells Solomon to take Martha and Frank because they'll slow him down. And just again, it did seem like a little out of character to me at the time. So just bringing that up now, because he does do it again later. So I don't know if there's a connection there. I don't know if that rubbed anyone else the wrong way, or because it was like a suggestion that then wasn't carried through either
Yeah.
way, but didn't seem to serve like a greater story point.
There's a lot of padding in this episode.
Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, it might just be they're stretching this out to be 2
Yeah.
episodes.
Because they had the end point in mind, and then they're like, oh,
We have to get to that point, and
I have in my notes a scene earlier with this, and maybe we'll talk about it. But when Diagorus arrives to the Cult of Scarrow, where we're introduced to them again, he steps out of the elevator and starts putting on gloves.
I noticed that
Yes.
too.
so what happened with that? We'll get to it when he gets converted. I'll
Okay.
bring it up then.
Okay, because it was interesting because the guys working on the
100th floor.
the 100th floor, one of them has
Yeah,
gloves, and the
yeah.
other guy's going out there barehanded with these metal plates.
Right.
And it was the same guy who was complaining about his
Yeah.
hands gonna be
Yeah.
cold.
Yeah.
But he also just had this. He's standing on this open ledge of 100 floors up on November 1st without gloves.
Yeah.
And then when he goes down into the basement is when he decides to put his gloves
Yeah.
on. I noticed that too.
Yeah.
Going, there's got to be a reason, but for the life
Yeah.
of me, I cannot figure out why.
We'll answer that later.
Yeah, okay.
When we get to it.
I really like the lighting in the tunnels and the whole set design. I don't know if it was a set or if they actually had a
The
place.
location.
It looked
But
good.
the lighting, I
Yeah.
thought
It
was
did look
really good in this. And when they're running back and forth, it doesn't seem like they're
One set.
on the same set.
Yeah.
We're just going
true.
back. It's
It
like
made
I thought that
sense.
was really done well.
It made sense that she got lost when she got lost.
Oh, yeah. Not like in Prometheus.
Okay, I have a weird New York question to ask of the only person who's from New York.
Let's do the sewers. I probably don't know.
Are there really sewer exits and manhole covers into buildings?
like the theater.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe back then. And theaters tend to be converted from other things all the time.
Okay.
There's banquet halls that were banks and stuff like that. So
It's almost a, what's the word?
Too convenient?
Trope?
Oh.
a trope
Of New York. Like I remember the old
Oh.
Beauty and Beast TV show, like to get into the underworld, you went into buildings and the secret entrances were down there. And it's like, there's a manhole cover in the basement of this theater that goes to a sewer.
Maybe Russell's a fan of Beauty and the Beast, and he was like, put that in there. Yeah.
Someone from New York would joke, yeah, you go down there to the sewer, you end up in New Jersey.
There was a cut from one scene to another, which reminded me of 80s television because Tallulah was
Yes.
saying, what'd you guys do with Laszlo? And Martha says, who's Laszlo? The vocals, Tallulah starts talking, but it's from another scene. So they're just still staying on Martha. So it's like, is she answering her now? But no, then they cut visually where you see they're all sitting down, or she's sitting down. It's a whole different room and
Yeah.
she's telling the story. And it just seemed like an odd,
That's a different room. That's a different room.
Yeah.
it just seemed like an
They're
odd
suddenly
little
in her dressing
transition.
room.
Yep.
It was like all this, something happened. There's just a time shift over to this new place. So it's just, I've seen it on so many different shows in the 80s.
It's
I never noticed.
It works well here that the time is compressed, but then
Right.
all this other stuff they took their time on.
Right.
Like, why?
I mean, I liked it. It was a
Yeah.
good switch, but it just, for some reason, jumped out at me at this one.
I noticed it too.
Again, just going to the class focus of this episode, even Tallulah, she's like a singer, an entertainer, and
right.
and like what
She's
most people would
nothing.
consider not even I think most people would consider that above a blue collar job.
Yeah.
Right. But even she is, one paycheck away from living in Hooverville. And so it's really
But she also mentions that no one's looking for Laszlo because he's just a stagehand, so who cares?
yeah.
And I also think the way she talks and the way that they definitely made all of the showgirls talk was they're only not lower class because they're doing this.
Yes.
That's there's something about being an actor or a performer that puts you above the lowest class, but they're still that type of person.
Although it is interesting that Tallulah is looking down on herself and she's like, honey, I only have one song in a musical stage review. But if you the shot outside the theater showing this poster, she's the headline. It's like Tallulah. So it's like, but you're the star of the show.
Off Broadway, I guess.
True, and during the Depression, right? But still, come on,
You moved up to
You've
this
got something.
position. They're having a meeting of Martha and Tallulah, and they're having the talk about the relationships and her love of Laszlo. Now he's gone, and but you got a great guy with you. And
Right.
Martha goes, "Oh no, it's not like that. Oh, he likes musical theater."
What a waste.
So there were the gay jokes back in '30 about musical theater. I mean, I know
No,
it's
but there were
now,
gay
but
jokes in Doctor Who during this season.
Even in
You
this
know.
episode, there are a couple others.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's more of a Russell thing.
Or I would say punch it up, add in a little humor.
Yeah.
Well, it is theater, so there's always there.
Right. But no
more
one would
than
talk
some
about
other, counting, it wasn't.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be talked about, I don't think. It didn't ring untrue to me for her to say that. I thought it was a funny little line.
Dalek Sec states that it is time for the final experiment to begin, but the other Daleks say that humans are inferior. Dalek Sec argues that the cult of Skaru's purpose was to find ways to survive, and they can only do that by merging with a human. Dalek Sec opens up his casing and orders Diagoras to be brought to him. He reaches out with his tentacles and envelops Diagoras.
I haven't seen that before. I mean, that was a very different type of Dalek move that
I haven't seen the skirt open up, just the upper middle torso housing.
And when you did see I never got the impression that there was that much more
I know.
tentacleness
Neither
did I.
underneath.
Yeah.
But also the one we saw was sort of shriveled up, and
Maybe this is what pure Daleks look like.
maybe. What wasn't the other
No,
one pure?
the
It
other
was
one
just
was
shriveled up.
pure.
It was just dying.
All right, there goes that there.
Looked more like Kang and Kodos.
Yes, it did.
If you know a better way to exchange amino acids.
I mean, it makes a good point of if we're so superior, why aren't we winning? Mm-hmm. Why are we losing? Why
Right.
are we almost extinct?
Yeah. And when he says that moment, like Dalek Sec is giving his speech of why they're doing this, and the other three Daleks are kind of, they look at each other like, this guy's crazy.
I love that, actually. I just, all they have to do is turn a Dalek's head, and
Yeah.
it's like, you can
Yeah.
read so much of what's going on. He's
yeah.
nuts.
Because one time I read, there he goes again. There's our fearless leader. Well, I think it's because the little movements we project because there's no emotion on
Yeah,
there.
that's true. We're putting whatever we
Yeah.
want onto that moment.
Well, it's the same thing that they do with R2.
Yes.
You know, it's
It
that
totally
same thing
is.
where
Yeah.
you just do some subtleties and it really pays off.
Yeah.
There's something about it that didn't really make it great. I can't find the right words, but I think it was animated well and performed well enough. I thought that was better than most of the mats they had of showing them overlooking Manhattan.
That's the weird part because they went in and they shot those. Those are supposed to be real.
Well, it's the compositing.
I know, but I'm like, why didn't they make that work better?
Well, they didn't have maybe they had a freelancer on the composite.
They put all the budget into Dalek Sec.
Yeah, maybe.
Taking in diagram, whatever.
Oh, I bet you that's very true.
Yeah, the battle shell is very roomy on the inside. You can fit a whole other person
It's bigger on
in
the
there
inside.
with them.
During Tallulah's next performance, Martha sees Laszlo in the wings. He has been partially changed into a pig man, and she runs after him, disrupting the show. Backstage, the Doctor uses a DNA scanner built from theater props in his sonic, as you do, to identify the glob they found in the tunnels. Its origin is Skaro, so he hurries to find Martha. He runs into Tallulah, and they both hear Martha scream as a pig man takes her. They follow and descend into the sewers. With your hand at the level of your eyes.
If the Doctor would have licked the brain earlier on, avoided this whole section.
Now, this was the part of the show that how ridiculous it was when she was trying to hide behind him. It was fun and funny.
Go behind the curtain that goes on
Yes,
stage. I mean,
yes.
But it was so camp.
yeah.
Again,
It was done as camp.
like
It was
you-
just
It felt like a kid's
Kids.
show.
So they did a lot of Buzzy Berkeley, camera shots.
Yeah,
so
I
that was
know.
kind of,
And,
okay, this is what you're getting,
right.
but you don't see this from the stage.
But there was always the through line of realism always came from it's like almost like the Doctor and the companion are straight men for the world. But this world was so campy, you'd think there was more of a through line. And I see Martha doing that. It was just
It seems so out of character.
it also did seem out of character. Like, how did she think she was hiding? What did she really think was happening?
And I think the establishing shot was odd because she was looking to her
Left?
left.
I think it was the
And
left.
came off from the right. So she was looking the opposite direction. So I was expecting, if you look at the television, on the left, because that's where she was looking at the beginning. But she comes off the right.
Yeah.
So weird.
even the Busby Berkeley number was so stereotypical.
The
Right.
thing, though, I mean, I don't know. I'm not so well versed in 1930s stage dance theater.
Really?
No.
I
But
thought you liked musical
the thing
theater.
about the thing about the Busby Berkeley movies is that they were movies from the camera's point of view.
Exactly,
It doesn't
yes.
work from an audience, so you wouldn't necessarily have a show that does that for people sitting in a theater looking at you from the front.
No, agreed.
He has a point.
It is a shame that Murray Gold said, I want to write, or they gave him opportunity to write that musical number or the song, and then it feels like it's wasted.
On the
The
silliness.
song's not bad.
So I don't
No,
even
but I
really
mean,
know.
like,
like the song.
I don't remember the song. I
don't
remember the
either, yeah.
campiness, is what I'm saying.
Oh, I
know
guess
what I
I
mean?
block it out. I remember the song.
Because it sounds like a good song.
It is.
It's very.
By the way, they will use it again.
Just as the Easter egg.
It's in the end of time.
It sounds very evocative of that time period, so I feel like he did a good job.
Yes.
but
It
I
reminds me
forget
of
about it.
Celestina Warbeck in Diagon Alley.
does. It is very Celestina Warback.
But then I forget about it because of the stuff that I'm rolling my eyes at.
Right, yeah.
Right. When they go down into the sewers again, this is where Tallulah really steps up and actually stands up for herself saying, no, I'm going with you.
Yeah.
A lot of her other attributes that you see up till now.
Damsel in distress.
Right.
Yeah. And again, maybe some people could see her as a potential companion material.
Oh, no. Sorry, did I say
No,
that?
I don't think so, but I think this is good. So it's
I
like
said
there's more.
some people. I didn't say the people here at this table.
But I think it's a redeeming quality. You know, that's like she is good. She is going to go
Yeah.
and try and find what's going on and try and go, hey, if they took Martha, they could take Laszlo. I'm going.
Yeah.
You know, it shows that she does have strength, which is really nice.
Except they don't do anything with it.
Agreed.
Nothing
I
comes
agree.
of it.
But that's the whole theme of the episode is that they don't delve enough into all this.
It feels as if there's a lot of setup, but no payoff for any of it.
Well, with her, the payoff is when she accepts Laszlo, and she's. Well,
That's
Yeah.
I'm not going to go into details.
It's
on
not a
that.
surprise.
But I think
Spoiler.
that was
Oops.
sort of like what everything about her was leading up to. That was a moment that they
Right.
thought
Yeah.
like, for a conceit of the show.
The Doctor and Tallulah run into Laszlo. He still has his mind and the ability to speak because he was able to escape before they totally converted him, but he has the ears and the snout of a pig. He tells them that the Daleks scan the humans for intelligence. Those with low intelligence are transformed into the pigmen, while the others are taken somewhere else. They soon come across the group with Martha and Frank being taken to the laboratory for the final experiment. Laszlo tells Tallulah to go back to the theater, and then he and the Doctor sneak into the group, going to the lab.
And that's why they don't do anything with Tallulah. Yeah, I'm going down into the sewers with you. And then Laszlo says, now leave. And she leaves. That's what bugs me.
Well, the doctor wants Laszlo and her
Yes.
to go. And
Yeah.
Laszlo says, well,
No.
you know the way back. You go. So
And she goes. So it's like they do what they should do with the Laszlo character.
Yeah.
But the Tallulah character, they don't know what to do with her. So, okay, we will get her off screen.
We figured there'd be something more with Tallulah.
It's very feminist to write a scene where a woman's going to love a man even though he's a pig.
at the end, as she runs away, does she make a decision to go back, or does she not know how to get back?
She can't figure. She gets
Ex-
I don't
lost.
think it's even said.
But
There's a shot of her where she's looking both ways, and then she turns around and is scared. Like, is she in that moment scared because she doesn't really know the way back? Or, like, the first time I watched it, and even the second time, my first inclination is she got lost. She doesn't know the way back. But I'm wondering if it could be taken as she was going to go back and then decides
To stay?
to, yes.
Maybe.
Stay and try and find them.
But-
well, she was on the
Whatever.
right path going
We'll
back.
find out in
'Cause
part
they-
two.
Yeah.
I like Laszlo better as Pig Laszlo than I did in Human Open. Like, his acting got better.
We had more things to act with.
Yeah.
More depth.
And again, I do want to commend that actress's performance for when she does meet up with Laszlo again.
Yeah. I want her to be better as a character.
Yes, absolutely.
Because the actress is good.
Especially since the show starts off with her.
Yeah.
The episode that.
Like immediately we connect with her. There's nothing not to like about her in that opening scene. And
She sounds like she's going to be annoying.
Yes.
But then she's not annoying.
no,
Right.
yeah.
I agree.
Now, this is where the Doctor sees the Dalek and saying that they keep surviving and I lose everything.
Yeah.
That's a great.
And so, so that's a good bit. But is it because he's still pining about Rose and that decision that just happened in Doomsday? Or is it everything along with that, with the whole Time War? I'm
everything.
thinking it's still a little bit more Rose.
I think it's fresh because it's Rose, but I think
Right.
it's everything.
I think it's
thank you.
everything.
That's what
I
was trying
think
to
it's
say.
everything.
Yeah. Which is an interesting moment when we stop and think that the Daleks were just having a conversation about then why are we losing if we're extinct? So like he's sitting there looking at them like they think they're so great that they're winning. And while they're actually sitting there
Right.
thinking like we're not winning,
Right.
we're losing.
There's a line that Tallulah said talking about what how her acting. When she says, yet again with the no kidding. I don't know, something about the way she said that was really done well. I love that line when she's telling him about, wait a minute, if you're saying they're not human, that kind of implies that they're from outer space and all that.
Oh, yeah.
And he's giving her that look, do you think do I look like I'm kidding? And then later on, once again with the no kidding. And it just, how she's processing it. I loved how she worked that scene, and I love that line.
We get the line from when the doctor meets up with the group again. Kiss me later. He says that to Frank.
He says it to Martha.
Yeah.
And then he says, and you can kiss me later too, Frank.
And then Andrew Garfield gives that weird smirk.
Oh, he gives an
Frank does,
awesome smirk.
So that's why I'm thinking there's not really a romance between he and Martha.
No. For all the gay people watching, Frank just pinged.
Either that or that's just Andrew Garfield, and maybe that was an ad-lib line.
It could be.
Yeah, it could have
I
been.
do kind of want to know the story behind the line, but I also don't want to it ruined for me.
Right.
They enter the lab as the final experiment nears completion. Martha asks the Daleks to explain the final experiment. The Dalek states that Daleks must evolve to survive. Dalek Sec opens up, and out steps a human Dalek, the future of humanity.
It's funny when you said Dalek Sec opens up. I was like, he's opening up to the group.
He's having his share.
He requested the talking stick.
Yeah.
I'm Sec, and I'm a Dalek. Hi, Sec.
Welcome, Sec. It's been 4 days since I've exterminated.
I've been feeling a little angry at the world lately.
It kills if you kill it.
I did not like his head.
No.
I don't like having the one eye.
I gotta tell you, though, that eye, to me, seems very expressive.
It does.
Yes.
Like, it doesn't seem like... Because, technically, someone else is controlling that thing.
Absolutely.
And it really seems to react to his acting.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. It
And,
is. You can get an emotion from that eye.
Which is a shame.
But the
because
rest.
it doesn't work for me.
Oh.
Right.
And his gloves are gone.
Okay, so
we get the
I was going to
glove
get to that.
story? Yeah.
So what happened when they were doing that, backing up to Gridlock, when you have Brannigan, the cat man, he's wearing a full-on costume with gloves because they didn't have enough money for prosthetic hands.
Okay.
So it's just his face. And so that's what they normally do with these types of makeup aliens. And so when they were doing that with Diagras, they were thinking along those same lines. So that's why he puts on those gloves before he gets converted. And then when they revealed to them what the prosthetics would be, they were like, oh, we have these gloved hands that, he's alien hands. They're like, oh, we thought there wasn't going to be there.
Oh, so, oh well?
Yeah.
Kind of a moment?
Yeah.
All right. Well, all right.
Do you know, is the human Dalek played by the same actor as Diagras?
It is played by the same actor, Eric Lauren, and the way I guess this will be happening next episode, but when he's talking to other people, he can't hear them because of the mechanisms operating the eye and the tentacles. So what he does is he waits for Tennant to stop talking, and then he says his lines.
Really? Oh, so he can hear...
Can he see?
He can only see. He can see through the nostril holes underneath the eye.
And I do have to say, I was looking at that going, what does he see through?
It's one of those things, though. In the next episode, as it went on, I started to enjoy it. But
I also liked it.
yeah, I thought they sold it. I thought his performance sold it. But in this episode, again, when you only see a minute of it and all it is this silly-looking thing, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It didn't feel organic that it was combined. It didn't feel like
I
it
agree
was
with that.
part of the body that you see in front of you.
And it's a human Dalek, so he's got a
Right.
human body and a Dalek head.
No subtlety whatsoever.
The Daleks came from the Kalids, who were humanoid. And when you saw, especially in this new incarnation in the episode Dalek, that it looked like a human face that's been altered and just diminished. So it had one eye open, but you could see where the other eye would be.
You could?
And
Yes.
the mouth and the nose. And you can see, it's
It was
been all kind of
imagine
melted
it like
in there.
melted down and closed.
Oh, wait, in this episode? Or
No,
that
in
other
Dalek,
in the other one.
with Christopher Eccleston.
Right, yeah.
So you could see that. And that's how they were presenting it for this,
Version.
But it's sort of been
the new
kind of
versions of it.
bastardized
So this
into-
seemed like somebody didn't. I don't know why.
Do their
it seemed like they
research.
it's more than that.
Yeah.
And that's what, this is my own, I know a lot of other people don't agree, but that was my pet peeve of, you didn't take what you've established 2 seasons ago of what the Dalek looks like inside there and keep with it.
Well, I noticed that Laszlo's teeth were filed down like they do to pigs and stuff. And if he was only a pig for a week or two, then it wouldn't be that teeth wouldn't be that long. And who would file that down? It would actually be really sharp or long and pointed.
I wondered about that.
Oh, you did?
I did.
Because that's how they developed the DNA to when they were doing it.
Oh, maybe. Okay, there you go.
Yeah,
Because
sure.
all of them were the exact same. So it's like, okay, that's part of the programming of the DNA. to
Or,
make them
maybe they
into
did that
slaves.
so they couldn't fight back.
I did wonder that too. Yeah, I did. It's like, did the Daleks do that so that they couldn't damage?
There's
things?
little things like that I wish they would have spent more time on.
Why are we got the pigmen? I mean, why are they? Your Daleks.
They
right?
use pigs in experiments that they are very I think they're genetically close to people, actually.
Yeah, but
Explain it.
But in the script of this story, the Daleks said, we need slaves.
Right.
So we're going to take human beings and make them look like pigs.
Right.
It's like more work than
But
is
they
needed.
also needed to experiment with human DNA in order to do the final experiment, which was the combination of
that's
Dalek
what
and
it
human.
is.
So this was
in
figuring
between.
out human
Yeah.
DNA and also
we
needing
needed that
slaves.
to be said
Okay.
from a
Yeah.
Dalek.
Again,
We
Yes.
needed that.
let's do another pass on the script.
They tried cows.
I think-
frogs.
no.
Or as Allburn would say, it's either brilliant.
I think that's that whole intelligence test part.
I know, I just think the pig men are stupid.
I think they should have had a line in there to explain why
Yeah.
they chose pigs.
I agree.
I agree.
Another thing, Mr. Diagoras, even though we hate that name, he's named after the 5th century BC Greek poet Diagoras the Atheist. That's where that horrible name comes from,
All right. So if he believed in God, he would have had a better name.
probably.
Tallulah was based on Jodie Foster from Bugsy Malone. And those of us who
yeah?
are older remember.
Yeah, yeah.
My name is Tallulah. Anyway.
Oh, her name was Tallulah in the movie?
Yeah, Jodie Foster's
I was
character is
thinking of
Tallulah.
Tallulah Bankhead, who was
Which was
old-timey
also
actress.
part of the whole Bugsy Malone, 30s gangsters and all that. But for me, Tallulah, I don't know, if it's more the actress and how they dressed her up, reminded me a lot more of Leslie Ann Warren.
She did look like Leslie Ann Warren.
She does.
She reminded me a lot of Ellen. Was it Ellen? Not Ellen Foley from Little Shop of Horrors. Ellen Green.
Yes.
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 That's who she reminded me the most of, because she had that same type of accent and
That very put
dialect.
on. Yeah.
But Leslie Ann Warren was also in Victor Victoria with
right.
the blonde wig, playing that same type of
that
showgirl.
character is a very stereotypical
Stereotype,
character,
Right.
And like I said, from Singing in the Rain.
Right.
Can't stand them.
People.
We laughed the first time.
People.
We laughed the first time. Just kidding. Daleks in Manhattan. This episode is good for who? Or specifically, who is this episode good for? A new viewer, a casual viewer, a fan of the show, or a diehard?
You probably already figured out from my comments how I feel about this episode. But one thing that's interesting is before I started watching this episode for our podcast, I thought these were great episodes. I thought these were really good episodes. And I would always talk to Eugene going, how come you don't like those episodes? I just don't get it. And then I watched them again. I'm really torn between a fan of Doctor Who and a diehard. That's what I really think about it. There's just so much in here that I think there's not to like. And it's difficult. It's like, because of how I used to think about this episode, it's like, well, no, it should be better. But when you watch it in practice, maybe it's not that good. But now after the podcast, and even though everything that we've said, we've also brought up some good stuff. So there is little bits and pieces in here that we can find that's good. So I think I'll be kind, and I'll say that it should be the category of you should already be a fan of Doctor Who.
I was gonna say Die Hard because of everything we were talking about, but I wouldn't consider myself a diehard. And this is one of those episodes where I thought I was gonna hate it again, and then I'm watching it and I liked it a lot more, and I remembered liking it. All these silly episodes end up being that way for me. But and again, I think that's also because I already know how silly they are, so I don't have an expectation. But I don't think it's a good episode, but I enjoy it, and I'm not a diehard fan, so I would say fan.
I don't particularly remember disliking these episodes or really liking them. They do, I think, stand out in my memory because the human Dalek hybrid is such a rememberable thing. Laszlo being a pig slave person is really rememberable. And even after watching this a couple times yesterday and today, it's still enjoyable. I'm going to go with a number 2. It's good for a casual viewer. I think I would not present this to somebody as a first-time Doctor Who viewer, but I don't quite have not the hate, but the dislike that maybe Brian or Josh have. So I'm going to
say hate.
Okay. I don't have the hate that Brian has. So I'm going to say a casual viewer. You should know a little bit about the whole Doctor Who universe.
Yeah, it's also not a very doctory episode. He's not really his usual self.
No, he's not.
But it might be fun for like an American or somebody who's like into that period of time or into, more like showy Broadway, like, because you get some of those, like you get a dance number, you get some costumes, you get that world that's apparently very accurate, according to Josh, as far as the accents, dialect wise. So
You
I'll
can't
stick
get Josh off Broadway.
with 2 for a casual viewer.
I definitely would not use this episode to introduce somebody to Doctor Who. So I was with Brian saying that it's either for the fan or the diehard. I'm just trying to look at what our categories are going, because I don't like the episode all that much because I think it's too much exposition setting up for the other episode. It's an episode good enough in its entirety. It's not a standalone. It needs that second half to complete the story. Not enough is happening in here to hold interest to it. For the 4th category we have, which is a diehard, just because I don't think most of the others, either new, casual, or even a fan, are going to pick this episode or 2 episodes to watch.
I agree.
If it's on, they might leave it on or they might fast forward. I think the diehard will see some of the good stuff that we picked into this and go, I want to see that again. And I'm still on that borderline of diehard to fans because it's like, I might want to pick this actually and see it again for what it has and what it offers. So I'm going to go for diehard.
For me, this episode is very inconsistent. The Doctor's behavior isn't the Doctor. They set up a lot of things that we don't get payoffs to. I want Tallulah to be stronger. Laszlo is weird that he's better as a pig. Diagoras, I hate that name. I hate the way that the hybrid looks like at the end. The plot could be taken out of this period piece and put into any other setting. It's just, for me, it's just a diehard. I really wanted to do these 2 episodes as one. Like I think I told Arlene, watch these 2 without me. So there are our thoughts on the Daleks in Manhattan. Join us next time for the conclusion of this 2-part episode, when the future becomes the present.
You've just listened to an episode of Who Knew?
Our wonderful theme music is by Michael Grady.
Find him on Facebook
At The Universe Explodes.
All our episodes are engineered by our very own Auburn.
Find me at auburnbinkley.com.
You can find this show in several places.
Follow us on Twitter at Who Knew Podcasts.
Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher.
Or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Who Knew Podcast.
All our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com.
You can leave comments there or email us at
whoknewpodcast@gmail.com.
This podcast is inspired by Doctor Who,
the longest-running sci-fi show in history,
and especially the revival spearheaded by Russell T. Davis.
Thanks to Russell,
Sydney Newman,
Verity Lambert,
Ron Grainer,
and all those involved in the adventures of our favorite Time Lord.
Your work continues to inspire and entertain. That will be it. Edit that out.
This will be edited out.
We're like an edit.
joke.
I don't need that. Pity laughter. I'll take that laughter.
it's a dog. A the what?